You know, our entire lives are online now. Our work, our conversations, our secrets, it's all on connected devices. That means cybersecurity isn't some niche topic for tech experts anymore. Nope, it's essential survival knowledge for every single one of us. So let's dive in and break down the fundamentals.
I love this quote because it gets to the very heart of the matter. See, cybersecurity isn't a textbook you can just memorize. It's a living, breathing conflict. It's this global chess match playing out every single second. On one side, you've got attackers, always hunting for a weakness, some tiny crack in the armor. And on the other, you have the defenders, working around the clock to predict those moves and patch up the holes.
So, here's our game plan. We're going to start by mapping out the digital battlefield and figuring out what our mission actually is. Then, we'll peek inside the attacker's playbook before we uncover the defender's most powerful weapon. And finally, we'll see how this all comes together in a place where it really, really matters. All right, first up, the digital battlefield. What are we even talking about here? Well, it's everything. It's the whole digital world. Our phones, our laptops, the networks, all the data zipping back and forth. And what's really interesting is that cybersecurity is so much more than just antivirus software. It's a whole ecosystem. We're talking about company policies, we're talking about training people, we're talking about managing risk. The goal is to protect everything from your personal photos to a country's entire power grid.
Okay, so before we can even start to build a defense, we have to be crystal clear on what we're trying to accomplish. What's the end game? In cybersecurity, that mission boils down to 5 fundamental goals. Let's check them out. The absolute foundation of security is something called the CIA triad. First up is confidentiality. That's just a fancy way of saying keeping secrets. You want to make sure only the right people can see the information. Next is integrity. This is all about trust. You need to know that the data you're looking at hasn't been secretly messed with. And finally, availability. This one's simple. The system has to be working when you actually need it.
But these days, the mission is bigger than that. We also need authenticity. How do you know that the website you're on is your actual bank and not a clever fake? And then there's accountability. Oh, this one is huge. It means you can trace actions back to a specific person or system. It's how we figure out what went wrong and who's responsible. All right, we know what we're trying to protect. Now let's switch sides. Let's put on the black hat for a minute and think like an attacker. Because, you know, understanding the offense is absolutely key to building a world-class defense. So attacks really fall into 2 main flavors. Passive attacks are like a spy quietly listening in on a phone line. The attacker doesn't change a thing, they just gather intel. And that makes them incredibly hard to spot. Active attacks, on the other hand, well, they're noisy. The attacker gets their hands dirty, changing data, messing with things, causing disruptions. Let's look at a few common active attacks. A masquerade is basically an attacker in disguise, pretending to be someone they're not. Data modification is exactly what it sounds like. Maybe they change a bank transfer amount from $100 to $10,000. A denial of service attack is like flooding a website with so much traffic that it just collapses. And with a replay attack, an attacker might just grab a valid login attempt and, well, replay it later to get in. So with all these threats out there, how in the world do we fight back? Well, our single most powerful weapon is cryptography, the science of secret codes. This is how we build our fortress. At its core, cryptography is how we actually achieve those security goals we talked about. It's the whole collection of mathematical tricks we use to scramble data, to hide its content, to guarantee its integrity, and to prove who sent it. It's really the engine of modern security. Now, there are 2 main types of encryption. Symmetric encryption is kind of like having one key for a lockbox. The same key locks it and unlocks it. It's super fast, but you've got this problem. How do you securely give that key to the other person? Asymmetric encryption is the clever solution. It uses 2 keys, a public key you can give to anyone, which only locks the box, and a private key that only you have, which is the only key that can unlock it. So here's how that works in practice. Let's say Alice wants to send a secret message to Bob. She grabs Bob's public key, which he can post on a billboard for all he cares. She uses that key to scramble her message. Now here's the magic. That scrambled message can only be unscrambled by one thing in the entire universe, Bob's private key. It's an absolutely brilliant one-way street for secure communication. Another vital tool is the cryptographic hash. Imagine you have a magical paper shredder. No matter what document you put in, a one-page memo or a 1,000-page novel, it always produces a tiny, unique pile of confetti. That pile of confetti is the hash. It's a digital fingerprint. And if you change even a single comma in that document and run it through again, poof, you get a completely different pile of confetti. That's how we verify data integrity. Okay, so we've got these amazing tools, right? Encryption and hashing. But how do we make them work across the entire global internet? How do we manage millions of public keys and actually trust that they belong to the right people? And that leads us to the million-dollar question. I mean, think about it. What if an attacker, let's call her Eve, tricked Alice into using her public key, pretending it was Bob's? Eve could read the message, and Alice and Bob would be completely in the dark. So how do we solve this massive trust problem? The answer is something called Public Key Infrastructure, or PKI. The best way to think about PKI is as the internet's official notary public. It's a system that uses a trusted third party called a certification authority to issue digital certificates. These certificates are like a digital passport, officially tying a public key to a real-world identity. Now, this system has a few key players. At the very top, you have this certification authority, the CA. That's our trusted notary. They issue a certificate, our digital passport, to a user. And anyone who looks at that passport to verify the user's identity is called a relying party. All these pieces work together to create what's called a web of trust that, frankly, makes the secure internet possible. Okay, that was a whole lot of theory. Let's make this concrete. Let's bring it all together and see how these concepts are applied in a really high-stakes, real-world scenario. So just imagine a hospital system that's responsible for thousands upon thousands of electronic health records. I mean, the stakes just don't get any higher. They have to nail all of our security goals. Patient data has to be confidential, its integrity has to be flawless, and it absolutely must be available to a doctor in the middle of an emergency. And here's how they do it. Look, they use everything we've talked about. For data just sitting on a server, what we call data at rest, they use that fast symmetric encryption. When they need to send a patient's file to another hospital, they use the power of asymmetric encryption to keep it safe. And how does one hospital trust that it's really talking to another doctor? You got it, PKI and digital certificates. On top of all that, they have strong network defenses to stop denial of service attacks and ensure availability. And that really brings us to the single most important takeaway from all of this. Good security isn't about finding one perfect tool or one magic bullet. It's about creating a layered defense, what we call defense in depth, where all these different mechanisms work together, creating a system that's way, way stronger than any of its individual parts. The digital battlefield, this battle of wits, it never stops. New attacks are invented every day, and new defenses are built to counter them. It's a constant evolution. And that leaves us with one final critical question. Are your defenses ready for whatever comes next? Thanks for watching.